I'm Mychal. I am a sommelier, tarot card reader, and former ballerina. Yeah, that's it.
I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, and a teacher. Welcome to All the Woo.
This is you for Untold Stories.
So we have realized that time-wise, there have been stories that we have cut and things that you might have been like, what, wait? And so we're going to flesh those out a little bit. And the interesting thing about this episode is it's a little bit time travel-y because we are also going to be telling you bits that are missing from episodes you have yet to hear.
Woo-woo.
As always, we want you to know that this is a safe space. It is non-judgmental. We hope you just sit down with us and have a great time and feel completely accepted as you are, where you are, whether you're all in woo or just sort of tiptoeing around the edges.
All right, so what we are preparing for this evening, since this is in a way a free-for-all, and I like bubbles and...
I like bubbles.
Yeah, so we're just going to trump this and say bubbles.
Bubbles.
So I'm doing a bubble called Berlucchi. It is a Italian sparkling wine called a Franciacorta, which is basically Italy's champagne. The champagne of Italy is what it's referred to because it's made in a lot of similar ways. Oftentimes, a lot of the same grapes are being used. It is just delicious, and bubbles make everything better.
So these are all woo topics because they have all been referred to in previous episodes of All the Woo A to Z. Mychal is going to be talking in depth about some more ghosts. Think of it. I'm also going to be speaking about ghosts and reincarnation, and then the backstory of a story you will get in Extraterrestrials.
Yes. So since it's a total of 6 different stories that we're trying to fit in, we are trying to get it all in here. So we are putting ourselves on a timer. We literally have a little timer here. We're limiting it to 4 minutes for each. We're going to see how quickly we can get these stories out here for you. So hopefully this within itself is going to be entertaining. All right. I don't know who's going to go first. I'm going first. Okay. Which story am I doing first? Oh, okay. All right. And timer's on. All right. So I've spoken about ghosts in the past and that I took a picture of a ghost. We know that. We know that I had a ghost in one of my houses. We know that. I've also had ghosts in a number of other homes that I've lived in. I've moved around a lot in my life. And what I did want to kind of say is that I have also had some not so good experiences as well. I was really lucky in the fact that especially the first 2 were very positive experiences. Really scary at first because I didn't really know what it is that I was dealing with.
The whole unknown aspect.
Yeah, you don't know, and it's something that's there for sure. But I've had others which were really genuinely
malevolent.
Yes. And I do want to kind of go off on that a little bit. The ones that were not so nice were not necessarily true ghosts or spirits like how you would think of them.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No Casper here.
No Casper, the friendly ghost. No, not at all. They were things that I don't think had ever really been people before. So,
and that's just creepy in general.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of...
Did they look like people?
No, they did not. Yeah, one in particular definitely did not. That it was described as looking like shadows, like moving shadows, like a moving Picasso painting, where it was like a cubed. It like took a form of shapes that were in constant movement.
I think I've seen that in a Doctor Who episode.
Probably. I mean, it's scary within itself, but that was one thing. I've also had other things that were, I'm almost on my second half of my 4 minutes. I'm going to try to wrap it up so I can save us some time on the other ones. But ultimately, I'm not going to get into too many of them because it would take a lot longer to explain those stories. I'm sure we will address them in detail in probably next season or something like that. But I just wanted to kind of say that because I had not mentioned that before, that I do know that not all ghost experiences or what are considered to be ghost experiences necessarily positive ones, but they're not also all negative ones either. Like I want that to be known.
So kind of like dealing with people, sometimes positive, sometimes negative.
Yeah, sometimes you get a nice person, sometimes you get somebody who's having a bad day, right?
Are there like 3 points that you can differentiate quickly between what's going to be a positive versus a malevolent? I'm guessing ghosts don't really lie.
No, they don't.
Especially if they're not actually ghosts.
Yeah, they don't really lie. I'd say if it's really interacting with you and really knows that you're there, that would put up some red flags for me, because it would kind of tell you it's not necessarily attached to the place itself and is like just living in its own world, and it just by accident happened to be seen by you, that it's more conscious of your presence there. That would be something that I would start definitely asking questions about. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but I am going to say that is a different type of being, a different kind of haunting kind of thing. And same thing is true. I'm not even going to say like whether or not they move things or anything, because that's not necessarily a telltale sign. But if you see that something's really actively interacting with you, I might want to get somebody involved who can, like a medium or something like that can come in and start asking some more specific questions.
And to me, that's just a cue to move to a different state.
or to move, whatever you want to do. Okay, I'm done.
All right. So I used to go and teach at an historical site, and there was a local ghost who was a Confederate soldier, and the ghost showed up periodically. And I had one student who I used to teach adults, so she brought her whole family. So she had a newborn, and she had a child, and she had a husband, and I think her mother came. And then she joked that she also brought her family ghosts with her.
Okay.
And so it turns out that having her ghost there kind of activated the other ghost.
Yeah.
So after a long period where nobody had seen the Civil War ghost, all of a sudden people were like seeing it all over the place. And a friend of mine who was a very sensible, straight-laced attorney, he was teaching a class late at night in this facility, and as everybody was sitting around talking about, this was writing, so everybody was sitting around talking about their stories.
Yeah.
And one by one, they each kind of had an experience of something walking behind them.
Like feeling a wind or a breeze, or just something brushing against them?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just sort of. And so he dismissed class, and everybody kind of ran out. And so
I can see why.
He was wearing cowboy boots, and he was closing up the room and everything to get ready to walk back. And he said as he was walking down the wooden walkway, because this was a reconstructed, basically a fort, he would step and he could hear steps behind him.
Yeah, following him?
Yeah. And so he was like, and he loved horror stuff, but didn't actually really believe it.
Most people don't like horror stuff happening to them. That's kind of a deciding factor there.
So it was probably a quarter of a mile to walk back to where we were all staying. And he said that while walking, not looking the whole time, telling himself, don't look back, don't look back, don't look back. He was walking out and he could hear steps behind him, and the place was empty because all the students already left and they'd only been the people there. So the conclusion was it was the Confederate ghost who was following him out.
I assume it did not follow him home, which is a good thing.
I don't think it had sort of a territory. It seemed to not go
was stuck to the
beyond
place.
a certain tree.
Yeah.
And that was often where it was sighted. It just turned out that this tree was right as where you turned into this place. And it liked to stand there on moonlit nights.
I mean, who wouldn't? I like moonlit lights. He sounds very romantic. He's a romantic ghost.
Well,
he was being chivalrous in walking him to his car to make sure he got there safely.
Yeah, he wasn't in a car, so he was just walking him out. But yes, my friend was like, as soon as he hit that property line, he just started running. He didn't care about cowboy boots anymore. He needed to get, what he said was he needed to get back and have a drink. Which is how you know it was a story about a writer.
Yeah, true. Okay. I think I am up next. I'm referring back to a story that I told about ghosts in the original ghost episode, which was that we met with a medium at my house. What I kind of wanted to get into is that conversation that we had with the medium as a family after was a very interesting conversation. We had him over and we were talking for about, I don't know, an hour and a half to 2 hours, because it really opened up so many different subjects like, oh, wait, what? Well, what about that? And well, what about that? And so I thought it was really interesting because we all had questions about, all the things that you would think, well, how does this work? How come we're seeing him on the second floor versus on the first floor of the property? Because we didn't see anything on the first floor.
It's kind of like in the TV show Ghosts, where they get a new ghost and the ghost is like, well, if I can walk through walls, why don't I fall through furniture? And they're like, it's just ghost rules.
It's just ghost rules. Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. And then asking about reincarnation, how that works. Like I had asked for myself that I had been always obsessed with ancient Egypt my entire life, that had never failed. And so I asked, like, okay, well, if reincarnation is a thing, did I have lifetimes in ancient Egypt since I'm obsessed with it? And he's like, yes, you have. You've had 4. And he told me at what different capacities I've had lifetimes there. It's like, well, that's awesome. But that wasn't necessarily true for my brother, who was obsessed with Jamaica at the time. He wanted to know if he had had any previous lifetimes there, and sadly, he had not. That was not quite the same thing. So if you're wondering, I have an obsession with, chances are I would say if you've had that obsession your entire life, then probably yes. If it's just for a period of your life, then probably no. I don't know if that's a hard and fast rule, but it was kind of interesting at one point when we were asking all these questions. He had kind of stopped. None of us were talking, and the medium said, wait, hold on. One at a time. I can't have you all talking at once. And we all kind of looked at each other. We're like, what is going on? What do you mean? Like, we were all very confused. And he said, oh, because he saw our confusion of the comment. He's like, basically we have a room full of spirits here because it's not very often that people on this side are not only interested in, but are asking questions and wanting to know answers about their world and like their side of things. So just the fact that we're having this conversation has attracted so many different spirits who want to participate and put in their 2 cents so that they were all talking at one time.
So people are people, whether they're incorporeal or not.
Exactly. They're like, and don't forget this, and don't tell them about this. It was a very interesting thing. And I also had noticed that during this time that we were having this conversation, that I started to, for the first time, experience what I now have as a marker, where like I kind of like my whole body will kind of shake like I'm cold. Mm-hmm. When talking about certain things. And I had asked about this. I'm like, this is so weird. I don't know why I'm shaking. I'm like, I'm not cold, but I'm shaking like I'm cold. And he's like, that is the thing that happens. That oftentimes, especially if you're speaking about real truth in that way, that you'll have an actual physical reaction to it. So if I'm speaking and I start to feel that way, I immediately know I need to pay attention to this because this is important for whatever reason.
And gentle listener, I will keep an eye out. If she starts shaking like a tree, I'll be like, this is good. Y'all need to listen up.
You're like, it's happening. Okay. And Suzanne's turn.
So in the reincarnation episode, I believed I mentioned that I had met several someones over the course of my life who had known me from past lives. But one person in particular was like you and I, we were lovers in a past life, and told me very specifically how we had parted. And it was a very highly romantic, love-torn story that my historical mind was like, that does not add up. However, I had an experience at that physical location when I was a teenager in college. So it was like 19 or 20.
Late teens
Late
into
teens.
early 20s, yeah.
Where I had been at that site and I had gone into sort of a hysterical fit. And according to the people who were there with me, I started speaking another language and was very, very upset.
Did they know what language?
They did.
Okay.
And in that same day, I got sunstroke.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that I was drinking 10,000 pounds of water. Still in all, I got sunstroke or heat stroke. I'm not sure. Is there a difference between heat stroke and sunstroke?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the symptoms are essentially the same, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, one is overexertion, overheated, like your body's literally overheated, versus sunstroke, I believe, can involve heat, but mostly has to do with exposure.
Okay, it was sunstroke. So, and I had to be put in a bus for the rest of the day with the air conditioning on and given more water. But he stated the details of that experience, and he could not have known. We're talking things that were 10 years apart almost. And so that was probably the most graphic illustration of somebody being like, no, I knew you in a past life. And so while I was pretty dismissive of him because also I thought it was a little bit of a line, we were lovers in a past life. Come on.
You're like, yes, my name is Suzanne. Nice to meet you. It's a little extreme.
We had known each other for a little while, but still in all, it was kind of the timing of that. So as I have looked at different stories in my life and different experiences and patched things together and gone, okay, I still don't understand historically how the details he was referring to could possibly have been accurate. Mm-hmm. However, there's also no way that he could have known that experience that I had that
very
I
physical,
barely remember.
Yeah, that physical experience that you had in a certain spot that he was referencing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how's that for oblique revealing?
Okay, so my next one, I'm going to refer to the dream episode where I had interpreted a dream for Suzanne.
Suzanne will not be interpreting this dream.
She's not going to be interpreting this dream. But there was a dream that I've had that has always stuck with me. I woke up thinking that I think it's a good example of another one. Like, it seemed like a nightmare at the time because I definitely woke up with anxiety with this dream. But the message that was behind it was very poignant. And I remind myself of it constantly, as a matter of fact, because it is relevant to my life still today. So I'll try to review the dream very quickly.
I'm ceding you my last 2 minutes from the last one.
Thank you. I'll still try to move through it quickly. I was with a friend who is not a real friend in real life. So sorry. Susanna will spit her wine out.
On the microphone, which
would have been bad. Would have been bad.
So not a friend in real life or not a real person?
Not a real person.
Okay.
Yes.
I felt like that was a significant distinction.
It is significant. Thank you. Thank you for helping me with that. Yes. Not a real person, but she was a good friend of mine in my dream. And she and I went into this shop, this little tiny shop. It was overcast and dark. And it was like we were in Chinatown in like San Francisco or something like that. Because we were walking into a shop that was what you would find for Chinese herbs and things of that nature. But we bypassed all of those things and went to a door to the back area where we met this man who was her father. And he was going to take us someplace. So he's like, okay, follow me. So we went into this back area that all of a sudden was no longer really a true hallway. It became a maze. This maze was filled with red clay walls as if it was more like dug out of the ground. And we were going up and down, in and out, like downstairs and crawling through holes and all this kind of thing. Along the way, it was lit by torches. And there was dead bodies everywhere as we were walking past. So
Dead as in skeletons or dead as in decomposing as you walk by?
Decomposing as you walk by. So there was like blood everywhere and stuff like that. It was a very kind of scary thing. Obviously, I knew that.
Sounds like a very graphic video game.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable because I didn't know what had caused these people to die. Obviously, they died in a very violent way, but I didn't know why or how. And I was just following my friend and her dad down through this maze. And so finally we got to this doorway. As you went through, there was a staircase that went down. And at the bottom of the staircase, there was this table up against the wall that had a light shining down on it. On the table, there is this large bowl of blood. And I was like, okay. So once you get down there, there was a wall, like you would have to do a U-turn to go around the wall, so you can't actually see where you were going to go. And that's just where the point in my mind I started to get so scared because I didn't know, obviously, where did that blood come from? Why is it on display like that? Where are we going to go that I cannot see where we're going?
And who are these people who I'm following?
Yeah, right. And so they were in front of me. I was in the back. I got about midway down the steps and I stopped because I became paralyzed with fear. And I could not go further. I was like, okay, I'm going to let them go ahead. And if I hear something happen to them, I can run. But then also I didn't hear anything happen, but they also didn't call for me either. So then all of a sudden I was just there by myself and not being able to move forward or move back. Wow. And I waited and I waited. And then I remember they came back up above where we had walked in from in the top doorway. And they called down to me and they're like, come on, why did you not come? And I came up and I was like, I'm sorry. And he looked at me, her father looked at me like dead straight in the eyes. And he said, do you think that I would ever lead you anywhere that would harm you? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay then, follow me. And I remember That's when I woke up. And I remember waking up so panicked from that dream. But in my interpretation of the dream, the way that it gets interpreted is that essentially he becomes my higher self, my higher self, leading me through life. And all of the dead people are my lessons that I have learned and changes that I've made in myself and how I've grown through this maze of life. And that I may not be able to see what is going to happen in my life, but I have to trust to just move forward. And so when I'm at those points where you just don't know what's going to happen, but you just have to do it anyway, sorry as I get emotional, it was a very important dream. And I always remember, I'm like, I have to move forward no matter, because even if I can't see what's going to happen, I'm supposed to go there. And to trust that I'm being led there for a reason.
Thank you for sharing something so personal and deep to you.
Yes. That's my dream.
And just for context, y'all, it is about 27 hours before a lunar eclipse that's supposed to kind of knock all of us on our
booties.
Yeah. In preparation for the Great American Eclipse. So you were watching transformation in real time. Mm-hmm. So on a slightly lighter note, this is a fast forward story. So I mentioned this just a tiny bit in the X episode, which is extraterrestrials, where Mychal shines and I'm mostly scared.
Yeah.
And I talk about missing dress and some missing time. And so the background of that is I had just returned from New York. I used to take groups of students to New York, and I had a very good trip. I felt very good about the trip. And so I had stopped at a boutique in Dallas before I went to the city where I lived at the time. And I bought myself a celebration dress. And so I remember walking out to my car, and then I remember driving up to my home, which was about 8 hours away. And so my intention had been, and what I have pieced together is that I was going to stop there, and then I had a friend who lived in the neighborhood. I was going to stop there, and then I was going to drive home. And I have no recollection of the time between leaving the store and arriving home. And I also lost the dress.
The dress did not make the drive. Yes.
But I had the receipt, so I knew it was a real thing, a real expensive thing. And
It's a shame that you're paying for something that you no longer have.
I actually bought it on eBay a couple of years ago, just to prove to myself it was real. But I don't think it was my dress. But the shop owner knew me, so if I had put it on my car and then just gotten in the car and forgotten to put it in the car or whatever and driven off without it,
I would have called you.
yeah, she would have called me. I would have run over it. Like there were so many things. If I had gone to my friend's house and checked in and left it there, then I would have known because they would have told me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's never been any explanation. And so the first time I told Mychal this story, and she was like, well, do you want to know if it was aliens? Because she was like, that's one of the things that you can tell is when you're missing time. Because when she started...
large chunks of time.
which that was at least 8 or 9 or 10 hours.
Yeah, that's a decent amount of time.
And 2 entirely different locations. And I was like, no, I don't want to know. Tell me. And so she checked in with her pendulum and she was like, it was aliens. And I was like, I don't want to know.
So if you all want to know, if you have missing time in that way, that could be a thing. Honestly, that's actually a pretty common occurrence when it is in relation to the little extraterrestrials out there. Not all of them are little, but yeah.
So
on the last little bit. So Suzanne, what is our next episode going to be?
It's very obliquely called Veils. Because we are going to be doing something unveiling in both of our lives.
Very true. We don't even know yet what it's all going to include. We're waiting for it at this moment in time.
So, yes, while it might be it might also be the last one that we tape. But yes, stay tuned for the unveiling of the backstory of Suzanne and Mychal's journey together through lives.
Plural.
All the woo.
A to Z.